everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Nicole and I'm a part-time reseller on Poshmark. And in today's video, I wanted to give some reselling advice from a seasoned seller. Now, I've been on the platform for 7.5 years. I've really learned a thing or two about selling on Poshmark and just reselling in general. So I figured I would make a video that basically just covers some advice. I'm probably gonna have to put this into 2 or 3 parts just because I have a bunch of things that I want to share with you. So hopefully you stick around for this whole video, and then also make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss the part 2 or even 3 that I do in the future. These are all things that you can learn whether you're a beginner or you're a seasoned seller just like me. I think we could constantly be learning things, and I think it's also really helpful to learn from someone who's done this before, because I think I would have liked to have learned some of these things before I actually had to learn them the hard way. It's always just helpful to, have somebody else that you can learn advice from. So hopefully you find this helpful. Let's get right into some of the advice that I wanted to give you. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to talk about is it's important to check the sold comps and not just listed comps, because the problem with checking listed comps is people don't really know where to price things. Sometimes people just guess, but also people list higher than they want to actually, get for the item. So it's more important to check to see what things have sold for, because a lot of times people will list something really high, but then they won't actually get that much in the end. I always recommend pricing higher than you plan to get. I always recommend pricing higher than you plan to get for the item, but I always recommend pricing higher than you plan to actually get for the item, because you want to leave room for them to send you an offer or for you to send an offer. But I don't think checking only listing price comps is going to really help you. You need to also check the sold comps, which you could just filter on solds and you'll find the sold comps that way. The next thing that it's important to remember that I want to tell you about is just consistency is key. So I always talk about how I list the same amount of items each day. That's really important. I think sharing your closet every day is important. Listing daily is important. Following, being active, all of that is important. Measurements in every listing are important. Good photos is important. You have to just be consistent with everything. You don't want one listing to be good and the next listing to be bad. You don't want to share one day and then nothing the next. You don't want to list nothing one day and then list 10 items the next day. You have to be consistent with everything, and that will bring in the consistent sales. The next one that is so important, and I swear by this because it's so important and I've learned the hard way, you need to be organized. I've lost way too many pieces of inventory along the way because I wasn't organized. I just had everything all over the place. I'm forever changing my organization system because I feel like as I grow my inventory, my needs are changing. But I think it's important to keep up with your inventory and change your organization as you go. Find a way that works for you and keep going. But it's important to do that because you don't want to lose items. You don't want to have to spend forever looking for an item. You want it to be very clear. I try and organize by category and by color, and that makes it easy for me to find things, especially if I'm doing a live show. I just pinpoint the color. I also find it easy to have the size tags on your hangers to really show what size it is. So if you're doing a live show and someone's asking you, do you have a size medium? You just go to those medium tags and it makes it really easy. Find a system that works for you and do it, and that will also just help you have way more success. Now, the next one is to put measurements. So I know this is controversial. Some people are I don't want to be bothered by it, but I find it to be really important, especially from someone that purchases on Poshmark and other platforms. I need to have measurements because I don't know if something's gonna fit me. A small can be different in a multitude of brands. So I need to know what it is. I also need to know if it has stretch. So not just measurements, but does it have stretch? What's the material of it? And I think a lot of people overlook this because they don't want to be bothered taking the measurements, but let's be real, taking measurements does not add that much time to your listings. It takes maybe a minute to do all the different measurements. So it makes it worth it, and you don't want to have someone ask you a question because you're going to already have lost that buyer by the time they ask you the question. So make sure you provide those measurements up front, and it's going to help someone buy the item faster. The next one that's important is to have patience. Now, this one's tough because I know we all have been in times where you're going back and forth with someone sending offers, or you're waiting for someone to answer your offer, you're waiting for someone to answer, your question or whatever. just have patience. Wait for things to sell. Don't get impatient thinking that something's not gonna sell and like impulsively take it down. Things take time to sell. They're not gonna maybe sell as fast as you thought they were, but they will sell eventually. So I just think it's important to have patience. It's tough. We learn through selling to have more patience, but it's really, really important to do. Now, the next one that's important is to pay attention to what is trending and pay attention to like the trends report. You want to make sure that you're listing things that people actively want, but you're also listing things that are trendy, such as like in-season pieces or styles or colors. So for example, like pale yellow or butter yellow was like the color of the summer. So paying attention to that and listing that color would have been really helpful. And again, listing colors for the fall that are really trendy as we go into fall, like burgundy or sage green or like that foresty green, those are really, really popular and people are looking for those. So use those keywords in your listings, pay attention to those trending items and look for them, and then you'll list them and they'll sell a lot faster. The next one is to take good photos. Now, this I talk about a lot, but I see so many people that take like really crappy photos that like I'm like, do you even want to sell the item because it looks that way? And I know people are in a rush sometimes and they don't have a whole professional setup, but you don't need a professional setup to take good photos. And if you take good photos, you're going to sell the items faster. So just take the extra 5 minutes it does take to take good photos, take them in good natural daylight, and you'll see just how fast things start selling for you. The next thing that's really important that I learned the hard way, because I did this in the beginning of when I first started selling, is to not use emojis in your titles. They are taking up space in your title, they are useless, and they don't add any value. So people use them to like draw attention into their listing, but to me, it actually draws me away. If I see an emoji, I click away. I don't think it adds any value. It hurts your SEO of the item, and basically it makes your item not searchable, because you think about how someone actually searches for an item. So if I'm searching for an item, I'm gonna say the brand and then I'm gonna describe it. I'm not gonna like type in an emoji and say like alert emoji and then what you're looking for. You want to do it as you would search for it. So like pretend that you're a buyer in this case and try and like search for your own item. Use those words because that's going to help the item sell faster. And going along with not using emojis in your title, don't start with NWT or new in box or new or like never worn, like anything like that. Again, I don't think that adds any value. People think it adds value, but they don't realize that you actually have a new with tag option that you can check off, and that's telling the person if it's new with tag. So they don't need to see it also in the title. I think it's more important to talk about what the brand is and then like describe the item and talk about the size. Now you may think it's not important to put the brand in the title, but I still think it is because it helps when someone is searching for that item. If I'm searching for a specific brand, if I search for that brand, it's going to come up because it's in the title. So I think it's more important to do that, and I don't think adding NWT or anything like that adds any value. And I think it's pretty clear when you look at the listing if it is new with tag or not. And if it's new without tag, you could put that in the description and you could just say this item is new without tag, you know, whatever. But I don't think it adds value to put it in the title itself. And finally, I'll end this video on you could always learn from other sellers on the platform. People have good advice, so just learn from them. You know, like we all make mistakes, we all try things, and we all learn from different experiences. So you could definitely learn from other sellers. Don't be afraid to like ask other people what they're doing. That's why I make these videos, because I just want to kind of like give advice based on things that I've done wrong or things that I've learned from. And I think it's really helpful to learn from other people, because at the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing. We're all trying to make money. We're all trying to sell items. So you can learn from somebody else that's just like you. And I think that's a great way to do it. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Like no question is a dumb question. I still to this day get like really basic questions. And like I don't get like annoyed by it. I don't get offended by it, because I know we all had to start somewhere. So when somebody asks me a simple question or what I think is a simple question, I just answer it the best that I can to help them, because at the end of the day, maybe they just don't know. Maybe they haven't been on the platform for a while. I've been here for longer than I'd like to admit. I've been around for 7.5 years, but I know not everyone has. So just learn from others and don't be afraid to ask people questions, but then also don't be rude when somebody asks you a question. Okay, so hopefully you found this video helpful and hopefully you learned something from it. I am gonna make a part 2 or maybe even a part 3, so definitely make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that future videos that I do. But if you want to see another video on a new feature that has been released recently to Poshmark, you can click right here. And if you want to see the letter from the CEO that he announced that he was stepping down, this might be a couple weeks old at this point, but if you haven't seen it, you missed that, you can click right here. But until next time, I will see you then.